Goeiedei, welcome. My name is Amarenske and today I will bring you a review of Locke and Keye by Christie Stratos. This is the second book in her Dark Victoriana collection, and just like the first book in it, Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, it's just over 200 pages long, which makes it a tiny book or a relatively short book, especially since the writing style is pretty easy to read. It does not have, for example, major flaws or grammatical errors in it. I might have discovered one, but I also might just have seen something that wasn't there. I don't know. I will not go in depth about that. What I will go in depth about is a little bit of the plot, as well as what I thought of the book, mostly about the writing, because that was such an important component of this book. It actually completely made it. So firstly, a short synopsis of this story. It's set in the same era as the beginning of the Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, and set in a lock and key shop, so a locksmith in the same town, starts when Mr. Locke, who is the founder and the boss of this shop, looks for employees. And the first chapter or segment tells us what he thought about all the people who came in and applied at the end of the month that he trialed them out, and what he thought about the ones he did not employ and the ones he did employ. Turns out that everyone he did employ did not seem to have a family and was pretty lonely, which might or might not be the case. I'm not going to spoil a lot on that one because it has to do with character development and depth. From the moment on that he employs his personnel, the plot starts in which we see murders happening, and we might or might not know in some way, shape or form who does it and why, but maybe we also know part of the motives, or maybe we don't. We follow that, and we follow the way the employees of the locksmith store deal with it, and also the way they acclimate to working there under Mr. Locke, of whom they know extremely little, and we know extremely little as well, because we know only as much as the employees get to see of him, which is extremely little, and he is an extremely mysterious character, which I loved because that mystery drives forward the story, as well as all the intrigue and abuse that happened in the past of most, if not all, of the characters that come into this locksmith shop, because we have 5 men that were employed. One is an apprentice and he is orphaned, but we don't really know a lot about what happened to his parents, and it's not really important to the story because he's 14 years old and he just is orphaned. He apparently has a brother, even though he says he didn't. That becomes clear pretty early on in the story. We also have more than one character who has been domestically abused and lived in domestic violence as a child, and we see how that influences the way they look at the world right now and what their specific violence and abuse has done with their personality and insecurities and stuff. It's very interesting to read, and the writing style plays a very important role in creating suspense. So you want to know more what happens and happened in the past of the characters, but also what happens with the characters here and what is actually going on with Mr. Locke. I thought it was very, very intriguing to read, and the writing style is very easy to get through, but it also creates a lot of suspense and mystery surrounding all of the stuff that is happening. This is a thriller. I could put it down, but I didn't really want to. I was reading it everywhere and it did hardly get distracted, even in the busiest of trains, and I just wanted to know what happened. And the most genius ways you see those, you don't see those murders happen. They just start happening, and you see how the personnel of the locksmith shop reacts to it. But you also see newspaper articles about what actually happened and what the crime scene looked like. And those descriptions are not very detailed, but they are still very horrific. And I thought it was very well done, because those things that are written, they do create atmosphere and intrigue, and they do create some kind of almost morbid curiosity at times to want to know what is going on, not only with those murders, but all of it creates some kind of who the hell is Mr. Locke? What happened to him in the past? And why is he acting the way he is acting? It's just sometimes it was frustrating not to know his motives, but also it drives the story forward, and it also is a perfect setting to build up the other characters around. Not all of them have just as much page time as another one. Jude has a lot of page time in the beginning. He is built up pretty well, but it's also actually his build up in very small amount of pages. The rest of his page time just strengthens what has already been built. And some characters only get a relatively few amount of segments, yet they feel completely built and build up more than what is actually needed to further the story and to propel the story. You get actual insight into personalities, also by the names chosen for the characters, because all the employees have a name directly linked or even the same as a Christian apostle. And Timothy is the apprentice. His name sounds a lot like Thomas. It sounds like a derivative of Thomas. And when I looked up what the personalities known of from all the apostles were, it seemed to fit too. And we are Jude, like I said, who has the most space in the beginning, but also throughout most of the rest of the book. He almost seemed like a combination of Apostle Jude and Judas. And I could not help at certain points but saying, I knew it. I knew there was more to this than just what happened here. And just like I said, like Mr. Locke, also that name says something about his character. Namely, he is very locked off. He does not really show his intentions and his motives at all. But you get to know something more than his last name later on in the book, and it does tell you a lot about why he is the way he is towards his employees, and to a lesser extent to his apprentice. It just tells you a lot. I like the way the names tell a lot about the characters here. I like the way they are purposefully chosen, and I like the way that there is a discussion on domestic violence and abuse put in here, but domestic violence and abuse of women that was not really accepted in this era as something that was just wrong, because the man always could say like their woman deserved it, no matter if the man in question beat his woman to be completely invalid afterwards. He could still say she deserved it and not get a prison sentence or any kind of sentence at all. And divorcing in this era, the Victorian era, this book specifically takes place in 1849, was not only uncommon but almost unheard of, and it was very much a shame to your family to do it. So those females, they stayed with their husband. And yeah, you see all that intrigue happening. Even though this is the second book in the Dark Victoriana collection, I would almost recommend this one to start with as much as the first book, simply because of the fact that this has in some way a wider scale, even though it has also just as small of a scale as the first book, Anatomy of a Darkened Heart. This book is just way less insular, and you get way more side characters that show up and disappear again, that do something for the story and that help tell the plot, even though this is obviously a heavily character-driven story, and the plot, even though present, is not necessarily always as present. I would almost say as it should be, but it is not needed to be present as much. So the plot you get is the plot you need to create a book with intrigue and a purpose and a goal. I thought it was very well done. Thank you for watching, and on the other keer.